Welcome back, racing fans, to Bourbon and Bits on FanDuel Racing YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you do not miss out on all the upcoming racing action. I'm Geena Lucille, and joined with me is the jockey who won the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks last year, Brian Hernandez Jr.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being here.
Of course.
You're working horses this morning. You are a true blue horseman, and I just am so thrilled that you had the time. You actually made the time to come in here and sit down and chat with me.
Yeah, of course. It's always fun to do these podcasts and, just kind of give the fans something to look forward to with Derby week coming up.
I know, and what a nice studio. LEX Studio has been so gracious to offer their services here for the Kentucky Derby so that you, the racing fans, don't miss out on anything. And Kentucky Derby coming up. You have a horse that has 130 points. You also have some history with this horse's mother and stuff. So let's talk about Burnham Square. Tell me all the things.
Yeah, Burnham Square, he won the Bluegrass, the rescheduled Bluegrass, when was it, last Tuesday. And he's a horse that, last year he ran first time out, and he was second here at Keeneland in a maiden auction race, I believe it was. And Ian was pretty high on him, and he told me then, he said, just watch this horse the rest of the year. We think you'll like him. And he went to Florida, and he won the Holy Bull and all those races. And fortunately, right after a couple weeks after the Fountain of Youth, Ian called Frank Bernice, my agent, and asked if we'd ride him in the Bluegrass with the commitment as well as riding him in the Derby. And I had been following him all winter long, watching his races, and just kind of because I'm really close to Ian and the Whittams as well, so I always try to follow all their horses. And when we finally got the call to ride him in the Bluegrass, we were really excited, and just getting to ride him in the Bluegrass and showing the kind of run he had. He's a type of horse where he looks like he's going to be a fun horse for the spring. The nice thing about him too is that, like you said, I know his whole family. I won the Mrs. Revere on his mother and broke her maiden at Kentucky Downs, and just it's kind of been part of the family since the word go.
Ian Wilkes is such a horseman, and he is, I don't want to say this and get in trouble, but he is one of my favorites. I love seeing him in the paddock. I love doing interviews with him on the backside. He's so funny, and he's just a really genuine human being. And his horses almost have an Ian-esque personality as well. They're like laid back and chilled, but they're all business.
Yeah, and that's a testament to his training and coming up under Carl Nafsker all those years. He's been around really good horses since he came here to the States, him and Tracy working for Carl all those years. And he's done just a great job since he's taken over from Mr. Carl. I mean, in Ian's case and the Whittams as well, they were the first ones to give me a really big opportunity when they let me stay on Fort Larned to ride him. I got lucky and picked him up in the Cornhusker that year, and he won. And then they let me ride him the rest of the year, and we won the Whitney, and then followed it up at the end of the year with the Classic. So, went in for riding for those people, and as loyal as they are for all these years, it means the world.
We'll jump back to Burnham Square. I want to talk to you a little bit because you just made a really key point where Ian is a trainer that will give a jockey a chance when you're not on that hot ticket top 5 number list, and so what is that like, being able to get that opportunity and then the stars align during the racing, because anything can happen during those races and a horse can be feeling any sort of way. So what is it like getting that phone call and getting that opportunity to ride a really nice one?
I mean, especially for the first time, it just completely changes your career, because up until you win that first grade 1, you're more than likely, anytime you get a really good one, you're going to get taken off when the time comes, just because they want the guys that have been in that situation and know the pressures behind it. So when they decided to leave me on him for the Whitney, I was really excited. And I remember flying up to Saratoga that day, and I had a friend of mine pick me up from the airport, and we kind of got to looking at the racing form, and I said, you know what, we can actually win a grade 1 today. And for, it goes back to the loyalty phase. That's why when people like the Whittams and Ian stay loyal to you and give you opportunities like that, you want to always repay the favor. And that's over these last 12 years now, anytime they ask us to ride a horse, we try to do it.
I love that. What is it, we talk about the great feeling, so it feels great in that car driving to the track knowing you have a shot to win a grade 1. And the loyalty factor, it just makes you actually feel like your foundation on your house is so solid. It just makes you feel really solid as a human being. But, jumping on the other spectrum of things, what is it like? Because I know, just like every jockey, you've been taken off a horse and it's won a graded stakes race, and I know you have such a positive outlook and you're such an incredible horseman, so you have a really good mindset, but how does it does hurt a bit?
It can, but you can't really let it bother you. I'll never forget, I rode Rachel Alexander her first 5 starts. So when I went down to Louisiana because I was struggling at the time, not doing so well. So I went down to Louisiana for the start of the fairgrounds meet, and then she was still up here, so Calvin worked her. And then he ended up getting a rider in the goldenrod, and she won by 20 or whatever, and then that was history. So then the next year I actually got done early Oaks Day, and that was probably the first time I'd ever sat in the grandstand at Churchill Downs and watched her win the Oaks. And, you get that feeling like, wow, that could have been me. But you just got to kind of get up the next morning and go out there, and hopefully one day you'll find one. And fortunately enough, it took a few years, but I was able to find another one.
That mentality is so beautiful and so inspiring, because you have a decision. You can either pack it up and be negative and be a little bit, hard on the career path and the industry, or you can just get up and say, you know what, it can happen again.
And I think that's like the correct mindset to have, because everybody does it. You go through the days and things aren't going right in life, and then you want to start pushing issues, and then you want to try to kind of make things happen. I mean, it seems like when you start doing that, that's when things start going bad. So you just kind of got to put it in the back of your mind and just say, hey, you know what? If it's meant to be, it'll develop in front of us, and we can make things happen.
That mindset is so valuable in every aspect in life. Family, kids, career, just keeping positive and getting up and just knowing that, you're blessed with the opportunity to get out of bed that morning.
Exactly. That's one good thing. And especially last year was the first year, my wife and I, Jamie, we went to Down syndrome, Louisville, their gala. And, just to see those kids, because they have their issues, but to see how happy they are and just, they just love life. And seeing kids like that, it puts you into perspective. You know what? Today we might not have won a race. Today we might have got stopped at a red light or whatever, but you know what? We still have a pretty good day.
I love that. And Brian, you've always been that type of rider and that type of human being. You always have a smile on your face in the mornings. And even if, like these horses humble you, and, even if a horse has been naughty or something at the track, you always have I've never heard you speak poorly on a horse, or, you really have just been such a stand-up horseman.
It just goes back to the years of, I guess, growing up with watching my dad all those years back in Louisiana. And even when first started getting on horses for Dale Angel, we got on 20 horses every morning, and you had to gallop, groom, do it all. And they weren't these grade 1 winners, that's for sure. You're talking about the bottom of the barrel maiden 5s at Evangeline Downs. So you grow up the rough way, but you grow up knowing horses and knowing how to be around them is the biggest thing. You always have to tell yourself, that's a 800, 900-pound animal. You're never going to out-muscle them, so you just got to kind of figure them out more than anything.
Do you have any fun stories from Louisiana riding back in the day?
Oh, yeah. Like before I started riding, I galloped for 5-6 years on Dale Angel's form, and we had no outside rail. So one morning we were galloping some 2-year-olds, and they bounced off of each other, and me and the other guy, we both fell off of each side of them, and then they were gone. So we had to go jump in the back of the truck and chase these things down the road, and we found them about a half a mile down the road in the middle of this big ditch.
I can just imagine two-year-olds bouncing, and then you guys just
going
like
going the opposite way. Yeah,
and then they
were gone. That.
Oh my goodness! And not having an outside rail, man.
Yeah, that, and then one time, it was just a little half-mile racetrack, and it was maybe 3 paths wide. And there was the walking wheel right outside the forward turn. And well, this one horse, he was going too fast around the turn to make it. And I was on him, and we went right into the walking wheel I think they had 8 horses on the walking wheel. It was a show.
Oh, right, because the walking wheel is open.
Yeah, the walking
right?
wheel is open.
Oh my gosh, so that's like a little kid running through a clothesline on a pony.
Yeah.
Oh no. Like, what was the vision like of pure madness?
No, you just go along with it. I mean,
did you duck down?
We were too dumb then to worry about things like that. You know, you just survive.
Yeah. There's a lot of survival I don't even know what the word I'm looking for, because there is no word for it. No. It's just when you're on a young horse that's learning, and some horses are nicer than the others or have been prepped. A lot of people don't understand that, you know, different horses are prepped at different facilities that have, you know, I mean, I worked at Windstar Farm. They have everything. You know, it's like a prep school for a 2-year-old or a horse that's becoming a racehorse. And I've also, my very first time on the track at 15, was riding horses for Mike Crowder at 505 back in the day, and these things were climbing the walls, and they've never had a halter on them.
Yeah, and that's just, it's different, the way different people do different things, so you gotta learn how to adapt.
And then, you know, 3 days in the stall, then we're in the shed row, and there's no mouth. I'll take the Windstar day any day.
Exactly. And in 2 weeks, you're going to the gate on them.
2 weeks, you're going to the gate.
Yeah. We've been there, done that.
And the horses, you know, they're just so happy to do it, though.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, these horses, these thoroughbreds, are so intelligent. Sometimes they're more intelligent than the riders that are on them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
more intelligent than the people that are around them.
Yeah.
And that's just, it goes back to like just about any horse, because just like the other day, we were out at Rosie Sharp's farm, and Wave 3 wanted to come out and do a video of the kids pony racing. And the Shannon Cogan lady, she was just amazed with how much the ponies wanted to do it, you know, let alone the kids riding them. But the ponies, they jump into it, and they just want to run.
I love that. She's been doing that. Yeah. It's great because it's teaching the kids so much horsemanship, and Rosie has incredible horsemanship skills.
She does a really good job with it too. It's amazing to watch. I haven't been able to go out and watch them live at the races. Like, they go to South Carolina, they've gone to Maryland a few times, and I haven't been able to go watch it live. But to watch them the other day out there in the field practicing, it was really cool.
And another thing that I see on social media is your children are really getting involved with horses and growing their horsemanship skills. How does that feel as a father to look at your children and see them growing?
It's fun until you go out in the backfield and you realize they each have about 6 ponies back there. But no, it's good. Are
they all the same color? Do you just do you pretend like, you know, one is the other one?
No, they have them all different colors, shapes, and sizes, and but it teaches them responsibility, which is nice. You know, my wife Jamie, she makes sure they're out there every day. They have to go feed the ponies, put the blankets on them when it's cold, and make sure they're all taken care of. And it really amazes you when, like the other day, I looked up and our 8-year-old Ben, he's out there feeding all the horses because Jamie had to go to a riding lesson with Jocelyn. And for kids of that age, you don't really see that now. So it's great to see the responsibility it puts into them.
8 years old, feeding all the ponies.
And jumps in the Kubota and drives it all over the farm. And I asked him, I said, well, how'd you learn how to drive this thing? Because he kind of did it over the winter while I was gone. And he goes, well, I just kind of taught myself.
That's amazing. I mean, that's how I grew up.
Yeah,
that's how you grew up.
Exactly. That's how I grew up. You know, I grew up, my little brother Kobe and I, we were out there every day taking care of the ponies, and same thing as the kids now. So it brings a lot of joy to watch them grow up that way.
Now, what do you think really stemmed the spark for horse racing with you and Kobe?
My dad.
Your dad.
You know, riding. He rode down in Louisiana for like 25 years, and, you know, when we were growing up as kids, Mom and Dad couldn't afford daycare or babysitter, so our daycare in the summertime was get up at 4 a.m. and get to the racetrack with Dad and hang out on the backside of Evangeline Downs. So, I mean, Evangeline Downs was our babysitter, and that's kind of all we knew.
Now, was your dad okay when you guys wanted to ride?
Yeah, I mean, he always knew it. You know, it was funny because my mom kept telling me, I was 17, I think, and she kept telling me, well, you got to finish high school, So one morning I was at Dale's farm, and we were shipping horses over to Delta Downs because their meet was about to start. We were going to ship some horses over there to gate break, to gate school and stuff like that. And he goes, well, come on, let's go. We're going to go ahead and get your license today, because he thought it was time. And that's kind of how I got going. Was before my mom even knew I had a jock's license, I went ahead and got it because Dale and my dad decided, hey, you're ready. So we drove over to Delta, and they okayed me, and I think I started riding like the next week.
What was it like riding your first race? Do you remember it? Sometimes some people do, some people don't.
Somewhat. I know it was 5/8 of a mile at Delta Downs for a guy named Chad Hassenflug, and it was a horse that had been running in quarter horse and thoroughbred races out at Los Al, going 870. So it was 5/8, and broke on the lead and was on the lead up until about the the eighth pole's ahead of the lane because it's 5/8 of a mile racetrack, and I thought it was, I didn't know exactly what was going on, and he just got run down a little bit within the last 16th of a mile. I think I was second. So that was pretty much all I can remember.
Have you ridden many quarter horses?
Did on the bush tracks for a little while when I was like 12 and 13.
What are those things like pulling up?
You just sit back and hope they stop. The worst thing about those things, though, especially those bush track races, it was the gate. You were worried about them flipping over and killing you in the gate. And even like when I first started riding at Evangeline, I remember riding horses and flipping halters and stuff like that.
Those iron halters to stop them from.
Yeah, to stop them from. They tie them into the gate.
Yeah, we've come a long way since then.
Exactly.
Especially with all the safety protocols and stuff. I mean, I'm really happy that we've just evolved and adapted and gone to a place where horses are just prepped a little better, and because it was the Wild West.
Yeah, it was, and not just prepped better, but like with all the safety protocols and everything we have with HISA, with the vets and everything, it's a lot safer out there riding as well, and the medication changes they've done over the years, it's become a whole lot safer sport.
A safer sport.
Well, I mean, anytime you wear a helmet for a living, you gotta take safety when you get it, I guess.
I mean, anytime you can, like you said, yes. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Anytime you can take a little bit extra safety protocol, because it takes a certain human being to put a helmet on and get on an animal and go 38, 40 miles an hour in a group.
Yeah, but like you yourself as well, you've done it so long, you don't really know anything else.
It's so natural. It's like getting in the car and driving.
Like getting in the car and driving.
I actually get a little overstimulated being around people. How are you, like, with people? Because a lot of the jockeys, I mean, we're around animals, and we wanted to work with animals for a reason. Not that we don't like people. Doing this job, I get a little overstimulated with humans, and I just need that horse time. Yeah. So with the success that has come with winning the Kentucky Derby on Mystic Dan, and then now you're just flourishing on Anna again. And every time I interview you, and you're such a doll for taking the time out of your day, because I've talked to you about Anna a few times, and you're everything that the consistency in that conversation is. I just got to stay out of her way.
And that's the key to it. I mean, she proved it again last Saturday in the race at Oaklawn, Apple Blossom. She broke a step slow, which was actually beneficial for her, because then that filly sire outside was able to just cross over, and we got a nice tracking trip off of her. But she just overcomes adversity, and she just shows her dominance. And it's funny, I was just on the phone with a reporter on the way up here this morning, and we were talking. And like I told him, it's funny from her going from her 3-year-old to a 4-year-old. Now she seems like she's got a little swagger to her step, where she's out there in the paddock and she kind of has her head up, and I think she knows now how popular and how good she is.
That's incredible. And I know you know that, because when I haven't seen her in person this year. No, that's a lie. I did see her gallop with Robbie at Oaklawn for the Derby, and she looked phenomenal. I mean, she always looks. She just, like, Kenny says, she looks like a bear. She really is. But it's cool to see that confidence building from a 3-year-old to a 4-year-old, and she's almost like developing that mare, that mama mentality, not the high school, college prep girl who's really athletic in college. Now she's like, oh, I'm Serena Williams,
Yeah, she's definitely matured. Like last year, she'd get a little washy and nervous, and in the post parade. But this year she's just been so professional. You know, it's getting now, especially the last few races with she's got the target on her back, so you know the pressure gets amped up. So a lot of the days that she runs, you know, you're just sitting there, you're like, God, let's just hurry up and get this over with. And you know, you don't really get to enjoy it until later that evening after it all kind of wears off and you really let it sink in what she accomplished on the day.
Well, there's so much more pressure on your back and your hands because you know she can win by 5 or 10.
Yeah.
So if you make any pilot error or something happens, you know, you're like...
And that's why I just keep telling myself, just stay out of her way. Let her do her thing.
Let her do it. Let Anna do it.
Exactly. That's what,
you're just the legal entity that has to be on her to win them.
Correct. I'm just the weight that has to be there. She that's what I keep telling everyone though. She takes care of all of us. We just stay out of her way and let her take care of all of us. Let her carry us along for the ride.
What do you remember about Rachel Alexandra?
Just how naturally talented she was from day one. When she first came in, I was getting on her for Mr. Howe, and I worked her. And then she ran first time out going 4.5 at Churchill, and she got beat. She was like third, but she got left a little bit. So his assistant at the time, Brett McCullen, Flacco is what we called him, he was living with me, and we were talking later that night, and he goes, don't worry, she won't lose next time, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, Flacco, whatever. Well, then she ran back 3 weeks later, and she won by like 8.
Incredible.
Yeah, she was an incredible mare.
Yeah.
Then I was fortunate enough when she moved over to Steve's. I'd always worked the workmate with her, so I got to kind of watch her develop through later on as a 4-year-old, and she was a one in a kind mare, really, more than anything.
Yeah. Well, we have 151 coming up soon. Count down the days.
It's coming fast.
I've only cried once.
Every day I get up, I'm like, wow, this thing's coming up way too quick.
Life is flying by.
Yes, it is.
Especially when you're on horses that you've been on.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just sailing.
But it's fun. You know,
Oh.
that's what you work every day for, is to try to find these good horses, and fortunately enough, we've found a few of them.
Now, have you looked at some of the other horses? Obviously, I know you have. This is a silly question, but you know, other horses besides Burnham Square that you think are talented and have...
Yeah, they've got quite a few of them this year. You know, a lot of them. I think that division that was down in Florida this spring looks really, really solid between the Tappan Street, Bill Our Sovereignty, and even Grande. You know, I rode a horse for Ian. Actually, I was shipped over to Gulfstream to ride Camp Howe in a maiden race, and he had just run second at Keeneland. He was second at Churchill, so we thought, we were like, oh man, we got a really good one for a maiden race at Gulfstream, and he got run down by Grande first time out. So I mean, I think those horses down in Florida this winter, they've really been tested, and I think they'll step up.
Now, what's it like riding the Kentucky Derby, being in the back, breaking with all those horses, finding a position? I mean, it just seems like absolute madness. It's such a massive field, and they say the luckiest horse wins the Derby. I mean, you and Dan, phenomenal performance. And I remember doing the FanDuel social show, which is very key for the FanDuel racing fans to keep in tune with that show. We post it every day during the Kentucky Derby lead up. And I was speaking with Dubs and Megan, and I just, you know, I was watching you working horses for Kenny, and then watching you in the Derby. I mean, you just found that perfect position. But what is it like being in a field that size?
When it comes to the Derby, you just have to tell yourself, go out there and ride your horse. You know, if you believe you have a horse with a real legitimate chance, go out there and just give him the best trip possible, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing around you. Just ride your horse. And like in Dan's case last year, it was one of the key things Kenny did with him was the Wednesday before Derby. We took him over to the gates and hand opened him out the front, just to where he'd leave there sharp and quick. And, you know, that's a testament to a really good horse, because most horses you can't do that with. If you do that with a horse, an average horse, they're just it'll blow their brain and make them nuts come race day. So when we did that, I knew that he'd be tactical enough to put me in a spot that I needed to be. And one thing about kind of learned about Derby is when you have a horse that can make 2 or 3 moves, which is rare. If a horse can stop and start, it helps because you're able to hit spots and then turn them back off and then get them going again. And that was another thing with Dan I kind of had an idea I can do with. Then on top of it, I just went back and watched every single horse in the field's replay. And I kind of, because I wanted to know where I thought everyone else would be, because I thought I can give my horse that kind of trip with a little pocket trip. And I actually thought just a photo would be on the lead. And when we crossed under the wire the first time and I seen it was Track Phantom, I was like, okay, well, this is even better because I know he'll get me to the quarter pole. And it's just with Derby, you just try to work out the best trip you can before you go out there. You want to have the best game plan you can come up with.
Can you hear the crowd? This is a question from social media. There's a couple people that ask if you can hear the crowd.
Oaks Day, when we turned for home, like right before we turned for home, Anna, she flicked her ears up again and like she popped her head up. And then I was like, okay, she's about to win. So you were able to hear the crowd that day. But Derby Day, no, you couldn't hear the crowd. We were just, when he pushed his way, when he popped through up the inside like he did and opened up, because for years, everyone's always told me that if you make it to the 8th pole in the Kentucky Derby in front, horses don't run you down that last 1/8 of a mile. So when he spurted off, when he straightened up and switched leads and spurted off, I was like, whoa, we're about to win the Kentucky Derby. And but then you heard those 2 horses running at him late, so I wasn't even thinking about the crowd. I was just kind of looking for the wire, begging for the wire.
Begging for the wire.
Hopefully we can win the Derby again this year so we can do the show again.
Oh, my goodness, absolutely. Well, I have one more question for you, and it's to someone in the younger generation that wants to get involved in horse racing. What would be the best piece of advice for someone?
It's what I've been asked that question a few times, and it's what I've always said. You know, find a trainer that has a farm with a lot of horses and just show up every day. If you show up every single day, you'll learn a lot, and people will give you an opportunity. That's the aspect of anything, really, but especially riding. If you just keep showing up and people see your face, eventually they'll give you an opportunity, and you learn a lot by just being there every day. If you're around horses and at the barn every day, you're going to pick it up naturally.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on FanDuel Racing. And be sure to hit that subscribe button so you are not missing any racehorse action here on FanDuel.